Hey, everybody. Today I'm going to talk about the first step towards mental health, and that is just basically deciding that it can be done. Now, that may sound flip, but there's a lot more to it than that. I recently gave some training at work that was basically on how to manage your workload. I work for the government, and I'm not going to say which organization within the government. I've worked for the government now for over 20 years. And most segments of the government are severely understaffed, which means the stress is through the roof. If you, next time you deal with a government worker and you're dealing with that frustration that they don't seem to care, take working at McDonald's and multiply that times 10. And that's the stress that a lot of government employees deal with. And I know because I used to work at McDonald's. I worked for McDonald's and Walmart, and the government is far more stressful. And when I first got this job, I was just told right off the bat, there's no way you can keep up with the workload, don't even try. And after 2 years, I decided to stop believing that. I didn't like the fact that I was always behind on everything. And I've never had a job where the work literally never ends. It didn't feel good to me. It stressed me out more not getting stuff done. So it took me 2 more years after that to figure out how to keep up with this incredible workload. But I've been doing it now for 6 years. So I'm giving this training to my fellow employees on how I have been managing my workload. And I tell them the first step is deciding that it can be done. And that's really magic. When they say that our perception is reality, and when I say that we are doing magic every moment of our lives, those are the kinds of things that I mean. I don't mean that if you change your way of thinking, you can break the laws of physics. They no longer apply to you specifically out of all the beings on this planet and in this universe. That's not what I mean. I mean that you are creating the rules for your life constantly by your thoughts. Now, if that seems like, or it's just saying just, oh, stop being mentally ill, that's not what I'm saying. Because remember, all of this is said in the context of that I've been dealing with mental illness my whole life. So don't take anything I say flippantly. Neither am I saying what the New Thoughts folks say is just you're creating your reality yourself, so therefore it is your responsibility and your fault. If you have a single bad thought in your head, then all the bad things that happen to you are your fault. That's also not what I'm saying. What I am saying is if you are believing that you will never be well, if you're believing that you can never be well, then you won't. Just like the folks at work, who a lot of them are not really making an effort into getting caught up with this massive workflow because they don't believe they can. And that belief is spread through repetition. Unfortunately, in the world of mental health, a lot of us are given that same belief. It is spread through repetition. Now, I've been dealing with some form of mental health my entire life, at the bare minimum, depression and anxiety, going all the way back to when I was a child. But my mental health got really bad when the PTSD hit me. There was times I couldn't leave the house. Going grocery shopping was a fucking nightmare. I was shaking constantly. Um, I lost most of my friends. It was a very difficult time in my life. And I did what they told me to do. Started taking the pills and going to therapy. And after several years, there was really no progress. Um, and it was disheartening when I found out that my mental health team wasn't really trying to make me better. That was not their goal. The health industry, the insurance industry, is capitalized. If you're old, I'm barely old enough to remember when it wasn't always that way. I before the magical before for time, before HMOs, um, and it doesn't have to be that way. There are other countries that have figured out how to do this better than we have. But the reality that we are dealing with in America is that our health industry has been capitalized. That especially applies to mental health. For most medical health insurance providers, if they can fix you in 6 weeks, cool. And fixing you means sending you back to work to where you could be a cog in the capitalist machine. You can make your money, pay your taxes, and buy stuff. Then you are functional, and that's really all we care about. If we cannot fix you in 6 weeks, then there's the effort noticeably decreases in that seventh week. The the ROI isn't there, the return on investment. If they can't quickly fix you, then they're not going to put a lot of effort into fixing you. And that's part of where these beliefs come from, that there is a whole host of mental illnesses that you can't fix. Borderline personality disorder, BPD, schizophrenia, any personality disorder, ADHD, on and on and on and on. In fact, it seems like the list of mental health disorders that are not fixable is much longer than the ones that are fixable. And yet, if you start doing some research and reading, you will see where other countries and other cultures have solved these problems, and sometimes they don't even consider them that big of a deal. So obviously we can do better than what we're doing now. The problem is when you become a problem, when you are not easily fixed in 6 weeks, then the system is not really putting a whole lot of effort into you. And they may start telling you this, well, you have such and such diagnosis, and that's not fixable. So the most you can do is manage it. And you manage it by taking your pills and going to therapy. That's what we're told to do. That doesn't usually do the trick. So a lot of people stop doing the therapy and stop taking their pills. And then they're worse. So while those two mental health tools are not enough to heal, they're definitely tools that you should be doing. The problem lies in the belief that you can never heal and in the definition of healing. So if you don't believe you can do it, you're not going to put a lot of effort into it, or any. Because really that is the magic right there. Magic is very much about changing the way you believe and changing the way you think. Now that there are elaborate ceremonial ways of doing this, and there are very simple ways of doing this, magic does not have to be complex. I've done ceremonial magic, but far, far more I've just done regular, what you would call kitchen witch magic, or chaos magic, shamanism. I've done a lot of different stuff. And magic can be very simple or it can be very complex. It just depends on how much effort you put into it and what you're trying to achieve. So yes, sometimes there's very complicated ways of changing the way you think, like going to therapy or doing a ceremonial magic, or sometimes it's just as simple as changing the way you think. Now, the definition of healing. First of all, yeah, there are a lot of things that we say are not healable that are. I don't know what your diagnoses are, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you can be healed. I know unilaterally that you could be better than you are now, and I can be better than I am now. I have several diagnoses that I have been told that are not healable that I know for a fact are, like PTSD. PTSD is dead ass resolvable, healable. There's not a lot of effort putting into healing it in the United States of America. There was before. We were actually better at treating PTSD 50 years ago than we are now. And there are many other places around the world where PTSD can be resolved within weeks. There are paradigms that we are aware of in America, but the insurance companies that are very effective. Again, we comes back to capitalism. That's why I did my last couple videos on mental health and capitalism and politics, because all of these things are relevant to the environment that we are trying to heal ourselves in. There are battles that we have to fight, you know? So it's difficult, just to do those things, to say, let's go back and say, okay, bare minimum, take your pills and go to therapy. But there's a lot of roadblocks in that. That's just saying, like, if you're mentally ill, you probably either don't have great insurance or you don't have insurance at all. Chances are that you're either underemployed or unemployed because you're mentally ill. So just doing anything when you are ill is more difficult. So it may sound simple of get online, find a provider, make a phone call, schedule an appointment, go to your appointment, pick up your meds. But all of those things are more difficult when you're mentally ill or physically ill or just ill. Let's just say ill. Those are all more difficult. So then when people are just put on some tennis shoes, just go to the gym, just get your sunshine, look at it, motherfucker. It's all I can do just to survive here, right? So unfortunately, that puts more responsibility on you. However, the responsibility can't be anywhere else but on you. We are taught to just go to the doctor and just rely, put our health in their hands and say, okay, doctor, here's my symptoms. Now diagnose me and fix me. But if you're going to heal, you can't do that. You have to take responsibility for yourself. And you say that you are going to be your own case manager. You're going to be your own advocate, and you're going to heal yourself, because you're going to have to do things that the doctor is not going to tell you to do. You're going to have to read things and do your own research and do a lot of stuff that the doctor's never going to tell you to do if you're going to heal. So you're going to have to be your own case manager. You're going to have to take responsibility for your own mental health. But I'm getting off track, because that's what I was talking about, was what's the meaning of health. I know PTSD is resolvable, but I don't know if ADHD is. I don't know if being on the spectrum is, or if that I want it to, because these things are part of my makeup, part of who I am. And as frustrating as they are to deal with sometimes, they are also part of me. So do I want to get rid of them? Not necessarily. But again, the belief, we're changing a lot of beliefs. That's what magic is. That's what mental health is. The belief is that you're not happy because you're mentally ill. So if you fix your mental illness, then you can be happy. And a lot of times that's not going to happen. It is true that many of us are dealing with issues that we're going to deal with our entire lives, or they're not going to go away anytime soon. But it's changing our way of thinking. You don't necessarily have to get rid of everything that is making you different from everybody else in order to be happy. You can be mentally ill and be happy. You could be physically ill and be happy all the time. No, because there's days that are worse than others. There are days that you're still going to struggle to get by. But overall, generally speaking, you can have a sense, a state of being, of peace and happiness and even joy. Every moment of your life? No. But you can have it. I'm speaking this from experience. I went from not being able to function to being ecstatically happy. Every day? No. Not even most of this day. Yesterday was a wreck. But mostly I'm happy. And I never thought that was possible. I had to change the way I thought to believe that I could heal before I could do it. So the first step is believing that you can be happy, believing that you can heal. Healing doesn't mean that your diagnosis is going to go away. Healing means that you're going to start working on your trauma. You're going to start changing the way you think. You're going to start changing the way you live. You're going to start changing the way you believe. Slowly. Believe me, this is not something where I'm going to say put on some gym shoes and go to the gym and you're going to be fine. Do this, this, and this, and everything will be all right. I will share techniques with you of things that I did that worked for me. And I know that it's difficult sometimes to change the way your patterns of thought. And all of this is a process that we're going to go through step by step. But the first step is believing that it can be done. And look, if you're having a hard time in life right now, I get it. I know. There's been many times in my life where I thought I would be better off dead. I understand. But please believe me that you can heal. And I believe that you can heal. I believe in you, and I love you. Now, before I go, I just want to ask you guys for some help. Part of what we're doing with the Temple of Love is if you go over to our website, templeoflove.life, we are compiling a list of resources for these very issues that mental health access is not always easy to get to if you don't have great insurance or you don't have insurance at all. Sometimes even if you have insurance, it's just difficult finding a provider. But other times, people have to pay out of their own pocket. So we're trying to compile a list of resources that will cover several bases. First of all, is how to get resources. How to find a provider, that is alternative lifestyle friendly. I'll talk about more about that in a second with with different insurances. Number 2, how to get care if you don't have insurance and you have to pay for it yourself, free or cheap resources. The second goal with this resource list is providers who are us friendly, weird friendly. We're looking at mostly people who fall into the queer spectrum. This is Pride Month, and we definitely care a lot about trans friendly care, trans affirming care, and care in general for the queer community, the LGBTQIA+. Now, I belong in that community myself, and I'm not going to say that all the time, so I just say queer. Different relationship styles. I myself am polyamorous. Different religions. I am pagan, but there's many different religions out there. I don't know how many times, at least a half a dozen times I've been told by different therapists, oh, just go to church. Well, that's not going to help somebody who's not a Christian or has no desire to be a Christian or is dealing with trauma from the Christian church. But there's also cultural issues. If you're a white person, I hope that by now you understand that minorities are having a different experience in America than you are, and that affects your psychology, which is going to affect your mental health care. Um, Women are having a different experience of the political environment that is existing right now. The list goes on, right? So there's a lot of different ways of being weird, and we want to point out access to weird friendly care. And the third thing is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about is how to do the work yourself, because the reality is that with the state of mental health care, of healthcare in America, and how many people need care, is just not everybody's going to be able to get to a therapist. Not everybody's going to be able to get all the therapy they need. I should be having therapy once a week, and with my insurance, I usually get an appointment every 3 months. I mean, I am dealing with a lot of trauma, so I have had to have out of necessity learn how to process trauma myself. A lot of it, some of it needs to be done with a therapist or with help, but some of it I can do myself. A lot of it I can do myself. And so we're trying to find those resources. And I'm going to start sharing specific techniques and things that I know and that I've done and that I've tried of how to improve your mental health on your own. But we also want to know about those resources. And we definitely don't know everything that's out there, and a lot of nooks and crannies and different regional and local programs all throughout the United States. So please let us know. You can look us up on our website. Again, that's templeoflove.life. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. You can leave me a comment here. And we really want to know. We want to put this out there and start getting putting these resources in one place so people have more easier access who are trying to get help. And we definitely want you to get the help you need. Like I said, I've been dealing with this. I'm sitting here making videos on mental health, and I myself have difficulty getting the mental health care that I need. So I understand that it is definitely a struggle. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. I love you, and blessed be.